Welcome, everyone, to an NABC chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Keith Urgo, the head coach of the Fordham Rams. And at this point, 11-1, the best record in the A10. First off, how did this happen?
You know what? Great scheduling, one. And then two, really good kids, a little bit older, mixed with some great young guys that are working hard, that have built on what, continue to build on what we did last year. So it's been a pleasure, man. So we're playing pretty well and we're continuing to get better. And again, I got great kids with great leadership.
Yeah, obviously you got to deal with the schedule in front of you. It feels like the perfect storm that you guys put together a winnable slate. You still got to win them with an experienced group that also added in transfers that have fit in. Youngstown State, Georgia Tech. With Moore and Quisenberry, what were you hoping to get out of them to this point?
Yeah, Darius joined us last year. So he was a transfer from last year's team and had opportunities once Coach Neptune departed for Villanova. He had high major opportunities and decided to stick around. So, obviously I appreciate him and his commitment to Fordham basketball. And then we added Khalid Moore this year, which has been a great addition. Both of those guys, what we needed was a Batman and Robin. I believe if Darius didn't get hurt last year, he won Atlantic 10 Player of the Year at 36. I think it was against Richmond at home here in a close loss, and won Atlantic 10 Player of the week that particular week. Has the talent and the ability to be one of the best players in the Atlantic 10. Khalid Moore, coming from the ACC, Georgia Tech, a big time transfer for us at the time, but not a traditional kind of lead role. Always been a role player from high school to AAU to Georgia Tech. So he knew he knew what he wanted his last year in college. And he came here kind of moving home, so to speak, being from Bishop Maloya. And he's performed at the high level in a much bigger role than he ever has. And he stepped up to that challenge. So we expected what we're getting from these guys. And honestly, their leadership has been tremendous. I think last year specifically, we went from 14th to tied 7th for the league. I think because we had a top-down organization, right? Coaches-led program. This year, this summer particularly, these guys have taken it upon their shoulders. We made it clear that in order for us to take the next step as a program, we needed to be a players-led locker room. And these two, specifically being 23 years old, taking that upon themselves, really embraced it and have exuded that to the highest of levels up to this point. So incredibly proud of them as people, leaders, and their play speaks for itself.
So this was an unbelievably unique situation. No one was planning that Jay Wright was going to retire. Kyle Neptune gets the job, and outside, correct me if I'm wrong, outside I think of the younger Fischilla going to Harvard, I don't know if there was another move between two schools on the staffs. You can correct me here, but initially I was like, wow, basically two staffs stayed intact, which almost never happens.
Yeah, you're right.
In college basketball.
You're right.
So what did you think of the way this played out between two schools that didn't owe anything to each other? It's not like Villanova and Fordham had to cut a deal, and say, hey, keep everyone, make everyone happy.
No, Fordham was very upset originally. I'm obviously grateful for it. I think the timing was such that with the May 1st deadline for the transfer portal last year, obviously rules have changed recently, but that played a major role because I was involved in the recruitment of most of the kids that joined our program last year. We only kept 3 kids from the previous Fordham team. So we had a bunch of new guys that bought into the way we had finished last year. And I played a major role with that and Coach Neptune. So, some of the kids returning went to bat for me without my knowing for the most part, as well as the staff. Fortunately, we have a tremendous staff. Coach Neptune did an unbelievable job kind of recruiting the staff before any of the players, which is an interesting kind of way to go about things, and something that I think both he and I have learned from Pat Chambers and Jay Wright, that you're only as good as your staff. So he took his time when he recruited his staff, and the staff all wanted to do something a little different. So when everything had happened, the staff and the current players, who were the players from last year, going to bat for me really was the difference. And there was, fortunately, there was only a few days between the May 1st transfer deadline, where they kind of put the AD had coal to the fire, and fortunately they responded in a positive way for me. But very unique situation. I couldn't have seen it. I didn't see it when I originally agreed to come to Fordham, but I'm incredibly grateful for the way things have turned out, and so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, how did you handle blocking out any external pressure that it was not a traditional hire in terms of a process? It was late.
Yeah.
First big time head coaching job, to where,
Yeah.
There's those expectations and those pressures, but you got to do the job. You got to prove yourself. How have you managed that?
Well, I'm not your traditional kind of first year head coach. I mean, obviously I was here a year ago,
right?
And we helped build the program. We were, 500 for the first time in years at Fordham. And I have tradition here. My father went here, played here in 1955, 59 undergraduate, 62 law graduate. I grew up in the Jesuits. I went to Gonzaga High School in DC, played basketball and lacrosse at Fordham, Fairfield University. So, I've been involved in the Jesuit ideology for years, right? So, and I've been in college basketball for 16 years. At the highest of levels, with Jay Wright of Villanova, been to a Final Four. Penn State with Pat Chambers took them to the top 10 NIT championship, top 10 programs in the country. So by the time we departed, so it wasn't like I was a fresh face who didn't have any experience. Fortunately, I got to learn from the failures of others, and I've been in it long enough. And here specifically, it wasn't like, you come into a program, take it over fresh, you have to start from scratch. Fortunately, I kept the staff, like you mentioned, had some returners, a lot of them, like you mentioned. So much easier transition for me than most new head coaches that take over programs, right? Been in the business for a long time, experienced different highs and lows, but also been here for a year. So it wasn't like I was coming into an institution I didn't know anything about, or a program I didn't know anything about, and starting from scratch. Very fortunate that my beginning as a head coach was much different than most. So as a result, it was kind of just an easier transition than most people would expect.
All right, last thing for you. 11-1, I know you got one more to go in the non-conference, and then you're diving into the A10. How do you ensure that this momentum continues? Because you've already got 11 in the bank. We'll see if you got 12. You're on the path to being in position for some sort of postseason, but you got a whole conference season to go.
Of course.
And it can go sideways and go north and south. So how do you stay that momentum?
Well, one of the things Jay Wright actually texted me the other day is don't taste the perfume, right? Perfume's poison. So it's something we've talked about with our team. You can't get too high, too low. When we had lost by 30 to Arkansas, I had 2 text messages. Right, my son and my wife. When we beat Tulane, I had 170 something. Right, so it's remaining humble and hungry, understanding that we are always trying to get better each and every day. That is the ultimate goal. We talk, and the fortunate piece is we've talked about it since June 1st, since you guys arrived, and I have a great older group. I mean, we start 2 kids that are 23 years old, then 22. Then 2 kids that are 21. We're much older. Now we drop off after that with freshmen. But as a result, we got older kids who have been through it, that understand that you could lose to anybody, you could beat anybody, right? The days of college basketball, the parity is unbelievable as it relates to the transfer portal and NIL and so to speak. So fortunately, we get some older kids that have been around, that are experienced, that are just trying to do something that's never been done at Fordham. And in order to do that, they understand we got to get better every single day. The goal is to be the best team this particular team can be by the end of the year. Whatever that means, postseason, A10 champions, middle of the pack, whatever that means. If we reach our goal to be the best team we can be by the end of the year, well, then it'll take care of itself. So these kids are focused enough where every day they come in trying to be better. And as a result, if they continue to do that, we feel like we have enough talent and depth, more so than ever before at Fordham, that we have the potential to be successful. So that's really what we talk about each and every day. We don't really focus on the end of the year. We just focus on the next day, and whatever happens at the end of the year will take care of itself.
Well, you're off to a great start. I'm glad we had a chance to catch up and shine the light on what you're doing so far at Fordham.
Andy, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Happy holidays to everybody out there. This is an incredible experience for me. I appreciate you. I've been a part of the Big Ten. You've done an amazing job in the Big Ten. You really raised the level of the Big Ten along with the TV deal, but your influence on it, it's been fantastic. So it's an honor to be a part of your show. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, man.